All right. Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Migrating SAP to Azure, Best Practices from Recent Customer Success Stories. I'm Kristen Tanner, Global Marketing Strategist for Protera Technologies, and I'll be hosting today's webinar. We appreciate all of you taking time out of your busy schedules to attend today's educational session. Protera is a leading global hosting and managed services certified SAP partner and Microsoft Gold Cloud Competency Partner. With many Protera customers currently running SAP, SAP HANA, and S/4HANA on Azure, we hope you find value in today's session as we share our expertise with you. We will be starting the webinar shortly, but first a few housekeeping notes. Only our presenters' phones are live. Your microphones have been muted by default to block any background noise. Our presenters will be answering questions at the conclusion of the webinar. If you have a question at that time, please type it into the Q&A function in your sidebar. If we don't get to your questions during the presentation, I or another member of the Protera team will be sure to follow up with you directly. And lastly, this webinar will be recorded and a link will be made available to all attendees. Now, I would like to introduce today's presenters, Patrick Osterhaus, President and Chief Technology Officer for Protera Technologies, and Pete Ditmars, Director of Client Services.
Thank you, Kristen. So first, we just want to talk a little bit about who Protera is and what we do, and then we'll get into the migrating SAP to Azure and how Protera can help. So Protera is a global IT outsourcing firm founded in 1998, headquartered near Chicago, Illinois. Protera was founded by some former SAP employees, so we have deep knowledge and experience in the area of SAP. Protera has 150 plus employees around the world, are again headquartered in Chicago with major offices in Athens, Greece, and Mumbai, India as well. Our two major services are our AppCare Platform and our FlexBridge migration automation platform. We'll talk about those in a little more detail as we move on. Again, talked about the locations. Protera has partnerships with SAP, Microsoft, and SUSE, to name a few, as well as certifications across the board with all of those partners as well, which we'll cover in some slides as they come up. Just a few of the global certifications that Protera holds with SAP. We're a global partner. We have hosting, mobile, cloud, HANA, and AMS certifications with SAP. We're also a Microsoft Azure Gold Cloud Platform partner and have been a partner with Microsoft in working with the Azure platform for years. Go ahead. So I want to talk about the Protera offerings. Again, I mentioned the AppCare Platform and the FlexBridge migration automation platform. Starting on the right, the Protera AppCare Platform. This is our SAP hosting in which Protera can manage from the infrastructure on up through the SAP basis layer and any subset of that in between. We offer AMS-only services and hosting either on-premise, in public clouds, private clouds, or private data centers. The FlexBridge platform, this is our migration automation service. It's a service. It's also a tool and a set of processes. FlexBridge is the tool and process that we use for all of our migrations. It can be used to automate migrations to HANA. Also, if you're already on HANA, we can migrate you from on-prem to a private or public cloud, from private cloud, whatever type of migration you're looking for with regard to SAP, FlexBridge is the tool and platform that can help you get there. Protera is a full lifecycle partner, so we will start our work with you from the design and architecture phase all the way up through steady state support, and again, any subset of that that meets your particular needs. But Protera will be there to help you design your migration and your target environment. We will use our FlexBridge tool to help deploy it, and then ultimately roll you into our AppCare service for your steady state support. As I mentioned, our AppCare Platform is our AMS support platform, from the infrastructure layer all the way up through the SAP basis layer. Again, just want to point out the flexibility of AppCare, that the support is available whether you are running SAP on-prem or in any type of cloud or data center environment. And again, Proterra has an infrastructure team to support your OS, your networking, and your hardware. And then, of course, the SAP basis support team to support your SAP application with broad knowledge across all areas of SAP.
All right. Thank you, Pete, for the good overview of Proterra. And I'll add one more thing here, and that's around the Proterra FlexBridge migration services that Pete mentioned. Our key message here on FlexBridge is to simplify migrations, especially to Azure. So focusing on a one-step migration where we can do multiple transformations. We'll talk about that idea a little more shortly. So focus on one step as well as tremendous savings in the cost. And we do that through multiple factors, which we'll go through in just a few minutes. Before we go there, I wanted to talk a little bit about SAP running the SAP applications on Azure. And to do that, just talking a little bit about the relationship of SAP and Microsoft. Pete mentioned a few minutes ago about Proterra's involvement, partnership with Microsoft. We've been on the technologies of Microsoft for professional services and for hosting since the inception, going back to the early versions of R3 of SAP running on a Microsoft Windows Server and a SQL Server back in the early 2000s. So we've been a long time Microsoft partner, working with the latest technologies that Microsoft brings to SAP, and also riding all the new innovations with Azure and the public cloud, what Microsoft is building here for all the new technologies for SAP. As you can see with the product leadership, Azure has amongst the highest capacity available right now for SAP compute. You can see that with 20 terabyte systems available for online transactions. This would be for the S4 or Business Suite on HANA systems. So this would be your ECC or R3 systems, or I should probably say ECC. And then 60 terabytes is the maximum now for online analytical processing. So this would be your BW systems. We can actually pair up multiple systems to get that scale, which they actually call scale out, to have a very, very large footprint available for analytics. So amongst the largest available in the market for either on-premise or cloud. So you're going with the best with Azure to be able to run your largest systems. Many, many other areas of alignment with new technologies for SAP. One of the areas we see a lot of interest is the hybrid cloud model, taking on-premise systems and connecting those into Azure. There's a lot of great solutions, which we'll have a future webinar on that content of the secret sauce items that Azure brings to the table for SAP solutions. And along with that, all the accolades, the recognition that Azure has for running SAP, and this is shown in the Gartner Magic Quadrants. You can see here over 7 different categories Azure Cloud has matched, its technology against its peers in very high regards. So you can see that across many areas, including infrastructure as a service, enterprise platform as a service, and you see BI as well as the storage. So amongst the leaders in all 7 categories. And as I mentioned on the size, pushing the limits here on what's available for SAP and the maximum size in the market, we can see here these are what's certified today for running HANA. So this includes Business Suite on HANA as well as S4 HANA. You can see on the upper limit, this is the 20 terabytes for OLTP. This would be for your ECC systems. We can actually extend that. There should be another line there that if you want to extend, do scale out, you can actually pair that up to 60 terabytes, as I mentioned. So you have a 20 terabyte option, you have a 16 terabyte option, and then you go down to essentially 1.5, 2, 3, and 4. So a lot of options that you can build your HANA system to exactly the size you need today. And as the system grows, you will resize it through the instances, through the VMs as the system grows. So a lot of flexibility and to ensure that you're saving money right from the get-go, as Pete mentioned, through the whole life cycle of the software. We mentioned this, there is a few caveats when you're going to run production systems of SAP on Azure. There are some requirements here. We put this as a reminder of you're going to require the Premier support. and then other technical stack requirements with monitoring, networking, and storage. So we like to put those in there. It's very close to the standard offering of Azure. You just have to add a few more additional options to ensure SAP can look when there's problems in the system. They can do a thorough analysis. So that was a little brief on SAP running on Azure. Now let's talk about how we can get the compute. So you have on-premise systems, you may have them in other clouds today, private clouds. How can you get them into Azure? So we will talk about this area. There's a great interest from our customers of what's the next steps here in the approach. So from a very, very high level, you can see in SAP's literature of going, especially to S4, there's a new methodology called Activate, and this replaces the ASAP methodology from the 90s and 2000s. This Activate methodology is going to go through the discovery phase, as well as preparing your environment, and then you actually going through the execution with the test runs, doing development, quality, and production. What we've done is we've taken, and this is just a very brief summary of the methodology that SAP provides with Activate and how Proterra helps both our partners, our system integrator partners, and our customers to get to S4 specifically. Now, if you're looking to do an as-is, and I'll talk about that idea very shortly, or a HANA migration, so you want to do Business Suite on HANA and Azure, we have pretty much the same steps. There's just a few additional steps that we would encourage a customer to go through to go to S4. So just to quickly summarize these steps at a high level, we would start with a technical migration assessment. And this is an automated procedure that we can provide for customers. Currently today, this is an ABAP program that we provide the customer, and they can run this. They provide the extract, which is an XML, and I'll show you just a high level of steps in just a minute. But we can have those results back to you as the clear areas that you want to focus upon for your migration. So looking at Azure, making sure the software is compatible, making sure the operating system, the database, you're not going to have any gotchas while you go through it. So that's the cursory first assessment that we do. From that information that we gather on your environment, and I should also mention today it's an ABAP. We are very shortly about to release a discovery agent, which is going to run on any environment that can run Java. So this discovery agent is going to provide information about the operating system, applications, the networking, storage. It will talk about interdependencies with other applications. So that's if you're interested in that, reach out. We can put you on the early release of that discovery agent when it's available here in the next month. So that's coming very shortly, and that would be part of this early assessment. But the idea is that we want to capture as much information about your environment and help you make some good decisions early on when you're thinking about going to Azure. From this information, from this discovery information, we're going to do a whiteboarding session. And the purpose of the whiteboarding session is to gather your best and brightest and into a room and talk about your IT roadmap for the next 5 years. If that's something that hasn't been done yet, we have some sample templates that we would suggest, and we want to use this as a working session. And we would encourage your SI, if there's one that is doing this, business process reengineering, if you're doing S4, that SI would be part of this whiteboarding session. So from that, we can get a really clear direction of how the migration is going to occur. We get really accurate timelines, as well as we would recommend a pilot. That is going to come with what we see this migration pilot as the fourth stage here. Before I go to the fourth stage, the third stage is the deep dive. And what the deep dive does is it actually goes into the details of the initial assessment that we've done, the whiteboarding, and it takes the information from those two sessions and it does exactly what we described with the deep dive, is it goes in much deeper analysis in the system. This can be done for non-SAP, for systems that are not going to S4, but the main goal here is to drive the decisions that need to be made for taking an ECC system and migrating that, converting it to S4 HANA. So the deep dive is going to analyze your system to look at what SAP calls a simplification listing. And the simplification listing is basically, you can think of the universe of SAP objects in S4. And it does a mapping of what you have in ECC and identifies where you will have issues. So either the functionality will no longer exist and you have to re-engineer it, or it could be a new feature, new way that you're going to have to do things. So the simplification listing, which we generate, is going to drive a lot of your engineering and the planning and configuration that you're going to do for S4. So that will come from the deep dive. as well as we will do an full investigation on all your custom objects in the system and see where there is going to be incompatibility issues as well as performance possible problems. So we're going to look at that in detail. And then there's a few other areas that we focus upon in deep dive. That is going to be around the business processes, so making sure they're all compatible, as well as the business process analytics. So for example, we will take a look at the documents in the system like purchase orders, and we will give you a grading of over the last 5 years, how many POs are still in a status that aren't completed. So it's looking at business documents, which can give you insights into the business process themselves. Maybe there's some tuning that has to be done to go to S4, but as important is cleaning up the data. So you don't, if you're moving houses, you might as well reorganize before you put it in boxes, not move everything, might as well clean it up and have the vital data, the most important data to come over and convert that. Not only is it less money on the target environment, but it's just good housekeeping. So this deep dive helps with all this analysis. This is done over a 5-day period. From this, you're going to get the roadmap to do S4. So as I mentioned, the next step here is the migration pilot. What we recommend is taking a copy of production, and that system we would actually have that same system recommended to be used as the deep dive. So we would take that same analysis, same system, and we would actually do the conversion, the migration to Azure with that system. So we would do that once. We would do another test run a few weeks later, and then we are ready for production. So once we do the production migration with those previous runs, we have a very good estimate of that downtime. And as I mentioned before, this is a one-step migration. So you're talking for a 2 terabyte system, this could be a 10-hour outage. So it's easy to be able to move to Azure public cloud, move to a different operating system, move to a HANA database, as well as a new application with S4HANA all in one weekend. And it still provides you time to do all your testing, all the retrofitting of interfaces, all those things, and set up backups. Then lastly, we have that production copy or production migration completed. We're going to copy the production system to make quality, and then we're in hypercare. So we're in the go live and post go live support. We'll fully support that as we're a certified partner with Azure, and we can do our managed services with AppCare on it. So that's the approach, the methodology. Some of the questions we're getting from customers is why, what's the drivers here? Why are we looking at SAP migrations? And we see this in 2 big categories. There is the alignment with SAP roadmap. So this is companies who want to get their systems fully maintained into the future, beyond the next decade. So looking at HANA, either for HANA Business Suite or Business Suite on HANA, or doing the application upgrade to S4HANA. So we see that first driver of SAP alignment. Second one is alignment with IT efficiency. So this becomes all of the great improvements that Azure Public Cloud provides over on-premise. So this is the agility, the scalability, the cost savings, all of the intrinsic values, as we saw, those 7 Gartner areas, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, that are world-class operations and services that Azure has that you're taking advantage of. And continues to get faster and cheaper, which is happening on a monthly basis, whereas on-premise solutions, you rarely see that's still the case. So that's that we see, those are the big drivers. So we can categorize SAP roadmap and the efficiencies in IT as the 2 drivers to go to Azure, as well as non-SAP systems. So on the bottom, you can see 3 different types of migrations. There's the lift and shift, which also is considered as is. So that's basically taking your existing system, if it's fully compatible, to run on Azure. So you can simply think if it's x86 based, if it's an Intel chipset, most likely it's going to be supported to run on Azure. And we would just copy those systems over. So again, one-step migration, and this can be just a few hour outage. So you can start capturing the value immediately. If you have any systems that are coming off lease, or for some reason you have to reclaim space in your data center, this is a perfect opportunity to move those systems immediately to Azure and build a hybrid cloud, hybrid architecture using Azure. So that's one immediate way to capture value from Azure. The second type of migration option is what we call a technical migration. So this would be moving a business suite system. You may have Oracle, you may have SQL Server, you may have, whatever other database that's supported by SAP, and you would migrate this then to HANA. So we see a lot of adoption of this. This provides increased analytics and performance in the system. So your invoice processing is going to run extremely faster with a HANA database under it than another previous vendor. So we see a lot of value there. We can do this move to Azure and move to HANA with the technical migration again in one step. And lastly, the one I just previously talked quite a bit about is the S/4HANA. So think of that transformation on the application layer. So you see all those transformations occurring there. Now, what we just described in that previous slide and these options are also described within a study that Microsoft did on the market today, and where they see as the focus areas of where companies are looking to go, and where are they coming from? What's their drivers essentially to go to Azure? So you can see lift and shift approximately is about 10% of customers are looking to do this approach. You have the C, the lift and shift, and then also doing some additional transformation, going to HANA. This would be your technical migration. That's about essentially half the market. And this is a few months old, so we see a lot of technical migrations that are occurring to go to Azure with SAP. And lastly, we see on D, this is the application transformation. So this is changing out the infrastructure, going to cloud, changing out the OS, the database, and also the application. So right now it's a small part of the market today, but we see this is the area where the most growth is occurring. We anticipate this year at Sapphire, we're going to have a tremendous amount of questions around this area and guidance around how can a customer go there. So that's our reason for focusing on our discovery phase or repair phases. So before I finish on the migrations and the approach, this is a very high level of how you get this assessment report. This is what kicks everything off. So encourage you listen to this webinar, go out to our website. You'll see the links out there of how you can register to get this technical assessment. This will start the ball rolling. You're going to get ABAP code. You can have the source code. We can send that to you directly, or we can give you a transport. You're just going to add this to the system, and you're going to run it. And at most, it'll take 2 to 3 minutes to run. You're going to see the output is a text file. It's an XML formatted file. We would like that sent back to us. And then from that, we're going to kick off the process with giving you a personalized, customized PDF report, and this will kick off the whiteboarding. That XML is going to have just a lot of technical vital data. That's what we need to drive discussions for the migration, make the plans. So you can see it. Can't see it. This is too small, but those are the drives. It's showing their capacity. That's going to go through all the versions of the SAP and the operating system and database and such. So getting to the best part, our final piece here, and this is our customer success stories. So I'll hand this over to Pete again. He can talk a little bit about his involvement in some of the projects. Pete runs our PMO office, so he is responsible for all these wonderful migration plans. He's actually built our templates for timelines, how we can best optimize those one-step migrations. So you can talk a little bit about some of our more complicated ones, which we'll show here, and what was done over the last year on these migrations.
Sure, thanks, Pat. Yeah, so I tried to take a sampling of different use cases for migrating to Azure, just to give you some examples of what may drive a particular customer to want to move from their current data center or on-prem or current cloud provider into Azure. And I think these three customers do a good job of showing the range of the drivers. So our first case is Chromeflow Technologies. They're a global colorant manufacturer headquartered in Ohio. This is an example of a customer that has their full SAP and ITO landscape managed and hosted in a traditional data center, hosted with Protera. They wanted to test the public cloud waters, so to speak. So we started off with just putting their DR in Microsoft Azure. So what we did is we took their production SAP systems, set up similar systems in the Azure cloud, and set up the replications between production and DR. And now they have their DR systems running live in the Azure cloud. So if there were ever to be a disaster on their primary systems, they would fail over and be running fully on Microsoft Azure. So that's kind of the first case. In Chrome and Flow's case, it was DR. Other customers, their first journey into the public cloud is a Sandbox system or development system, maybe something that isn't going to be up and running all the time. Sandbox is a good case as well. You could set up a Sandbox in Azure, have it as an on-demand instance, and then you're only paying to use it while it's up and running. So if you're only using it during, say, US business hours, you could shut it down at night and on the weekends and not pay those usage charges. So Sandbox, another similar case to running DR. Our next example is Elevance Renewable Sciences. This is a chemical company headquartered in Illinois. This is a smaller SAP landscape. Elevance actually wanted to move their entire SAP landscape to the cloud to try to take advantage of the cost savings and the flexibilities that are inherent to clouds like Azure. So Proterra actually migrated their entire landscape, development and production, and were able to incorporate a QAS refresh in the same weekend as their migration to the cloud. So we migrated their dev system. Once that was deemed successful and signed off, we were able to migrate their production system. And again, once production was successfully migrated, we took a copy and created QAS right there in Azure, so that they in addition to getting the migration to the cloud, they also got an additional QAS refresh at the same time. And we were able to do that all within one weekend. So that's kind of the typical case that we're seeing now, which is the full landscape migrations. There's less of the trying out with a Sandbox or a dev system now, and I think most companies are finding that they're comfortable operating in the public cloud, so we're seeing these full landscape migrations. Tate & Lyle, the third use case here, not only a migration to a cloud, but also migration to HANA at the same time. And this really gets into Proterra's FlexBridge automation suite, where we can do all of these within one migration step, which the important thing to note here is it's one downtime and one set of testing, which is really, I think, the key feature for most customers. Is if you're doing a migration to the cloud and then a few months later you're doing a HANA migration, or vice versa if you do it in the other order, that's 2 times that you have to have your system down, and 2 times that you need to bring in your super users to do testing and pull them away from their day-to-day work. So FlexBridge gives customers the opportunity to do all these migrations in one step and one outage to minimize the time involved and the effort involved on the testing and validation phase. So Tate & Lyle was running the standard SAP suite in a traditional data center. They wanted to move to the Azure cloud and also do a HANA migration. So again, using the Protera FlexBridge tool, we were able to do that in one step, and it migrates and moves the systems using our automated tools all within one downtime over one weekend. So the outage to the business is minimized. And just a little more kind of general information about why you would move to the cloud and what we can do with FlexBridge. What this slide's really speaking to here is the flexibility of our tool to take any combination of source environments, whether it's a traditional database or you're already on HANA, what your OS is and where you're going to, and we can migrate any of those combinations into the Azure cloud on HANA, again, using our FlexBridge tool, all within one migration cycle and one outage. And the thing you gain from this is obviously reduced cost and complexity because you're doing it all at once. And then all the gains that you get inherent to the cloud itself with the cost savings and flexibility, and not having to own your own hardware, and you get to move up the instances and take advantage of the savings that the cloud provider will offer in terms of storage costs, et cetera, over the lifetime that you wouldn't be able to take advantage of if you were on traditional hardware. Again, I've already kind of spoken to this, some of the typical use cases. We talked about the SAP production systems. Again, just want to talk about the non-production systems. If you want to have a sandbox that you want to bring up from time to time, maybe you don't always have a need for a sandbox, but every couple of months you need to bring up a sandbox to do some proof of concept or some testing of some configurations, or you need a copy of your production system to do some validations. The public cloud is a perfect place for this because you don't have to buy a hardware and have it sitting there idle while the system is not in use. You can have your system migrated and built in Azure and then shut it down, and then you're not paying for it when you're not using it. And then you just bring it up and you pay the usage charges as needed. And again, DR would be the third example, which is what we did with ChromaFlow. They run their production system currently they're running their production system in a traditional data center, and their DR is in the Azure cloud. Ultimately, the customer like that could look at moving their entire landscape to the cloud. But in this example, we're just showing that you can have your production environment in one location and your DR environment in the public cloud, and that works perfectly together.
All right, so I think with that, we can go into the Q&A section. We have 3 questions already pop in here throughout the conversation, and then I'm sure we'll get more here. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in. There's a Q&A button there on the bottom. Try to stump us. It's going to be hard, though, because Pete Prairie is pretty much the expert. So stump Pete, that's what we're going to change the section to. So first one here, question came up is around the migration options. So I'll take that one. This is the area I was talking to. So what can move to Azure? So I'm presuming this is just in generic, beyond SAP. So as we talked about, there's as is, or the lift and shift idea for doing migrations. There's a myriad of ways we can do those copies, those migrations. There is third-party products. A lot of them are very, very good. If you can do an exact copy, you can use one of those products. Otherwise, another option can be just do a backup and restore. Pete mentioned one of the ways that we did the Elevance copy is doing a backup restore, and you can even set up as a DR pair. So as the case study is this customer success story with ChromaFlow, we actually had DR set up on-premise to Azure. We could use that as the mechanism to actually build the system. And that's actually one of the best ways to minimize your downtime when you do a migration down to like even seconds, because you can fail it over at any point in time, and now you're on this other environment. So the short answer in summary is that what can move to Azure, if it's x86 based, if it's an Intel based software, and it's still in support, obviously you don't want to be moving over old operating systems that are out of support. If you're getting close to end of life support, you might use this opportunity to change it at the time when you do the migration. So a lot of options. Feel free for your exact systems. And as I mentioned before, you can be on our early usage of the discovery agents, and we can help discover what you have and what the best way to approach those, move those to Azure. Another question that came in shortly thereafter was around what SAP applications are supported on Azure. And that's a slide that we typically will cover when we have the focus on operations side of Azure and running SAP. You can think of the full business suite. So this includes ECC, SRM, CRM, the solution manager system, and the analytics systems, BW. Those are all fully supported in Azure. This goes back to, I believe, even 5.0 can be run still in Azure, that's certified. And then there's a lot of other products, including the other software that you do not run or install directly, but for example, Concur, SuccessFactors, many of those applications are actually running on the Azure cloud behind the scenes. So those are the short answer here in summary. Pretty much all SAP applications. The only one I can think of as an exception is SAP MDM, I think version 7. That's the Windows version, is the only thing that is I think it's a compatibility issue right now with SAP, but pretty much everything under the SAP universe that was built in the last 10 years is fully supported for Azure. Another question that came in near the use cases, the customers, and I'll take this one, is around the DR. So can DR for SAP HANA be set up from on-premise to Azure? So we talked about the use case with ChromaFlow, the DR is Microsoft Windows Server and SQL Server. We also have environments that have SAP HANA that are replicating from their on-premise environment to Azure. So that is a case where you can have a failover testing at any time, copy the system in Azure, as well as you can use that as a copy of prod. So anytime you need to do regression testing, instead of copying production back to your quality system, you can copy your DR system and spin that up anytime. And I'll also say, it wasn't the purpose of this webinar, we have a lot of extensive information on separate webinars around HA and DR for HANA, especially around options with public cloud and with SUSE. So SUSE is a valued partner of ours. They provide pretty much the full landscape of SAP HANA customers is running on the SUSE operating system. And they have some really amazing solutions around HA and DR. They have a solution called Cost Optimized DR where you can minimize the size of your HANA system and still replicate to it. And you can also even dual purpose your quality or dev system and run your DR there. So feel free to reach out to us, more questions on that one. But to answer your question very succinctly and shortly, yes, DR can be set up on-premise to Azure for HANA and for S/4HANA. Then we had another one that came in to the questions we were talking about migration options. So this one was around any exceptions around the one-step migration. So that's a gotcha one. That's a good one. So there certainly is exceptions. SAP has a wide net of operating system database that they support to run SAP. And over the years, we found a few that are a little more tricky to do. The new systems for S4 to go directly to S4, there's two caveats. There is one on the application side, and that is it requires ECC 6.0 to go to S4 directly. And the other one is it needs to be Unicode. So we have run into customers that will be either on the mainframe or on iSeries, and they're not Unicode, and so they would actually have to do a two-step migration. They would have to Unicode, convert that system, and then they can go to S4. So that's for S4 specifically. For going to HANA, there is some exceptions that we have come up with some clever ways around it that are fully supported, yet we still can keep intact those one-step requirements. And those gotchas are around operating system compatibility. So we have solution ways to be fully supported and still do the migrations in one step still. So again, if you have any questions, reach out to us. Happy to solution it for you, do it. So I think those are all the questions that came in so far. I check in now, I don't see any new ones. So feel free to reach out to us. Here's some contact information. The easiest way to get hold of us is just go on our website. There's a contact us link there, and we'll get back to you immediately on any of your questions on either our AppCare managed services or on FlexBridge moving to the Azure cloud. Thank you everyone for your time, and I'll give this back to Kristen.
Fantastic. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Pete. Great content. Also, just wanted to mention, too, that we will have Protera Insight Days. We had 10 scheduled throughout the United States at local Microsoft technology centers. So we'll be taking this information and taking kind of a deeper dive over a few hours directly in-person sessions. We have one coming up in Minneapolis on Monday, and then we have a few more in Boston, Philadelphia, and San Francisco coming up in March. So look for the link on Proterra.com, and hopefully we will see you shortly. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.